The commission is reconvened. La commission reprend.
Hey, good afternoon, bon après-midi. Oh, okay. We're ready to go then. Go ahead.
For the record, my name is Brendan Miller. I'm counsel to Freedom Corp, which is the corporation and entity that represents the protesters that were in Ottawa in January and February of 2022. First, both of you, thank you for your service, and thank you for testifying here today. So I just want to begin by doing sort of a housekeeping matter from yesterday, but I'm going to use you folks to do that. If I can bring up document SSM.CAN.0000283_rel.0001. Okay. And you had said in your evidence in chief, Commissioner Lucki, that the RCMP in Ottawa also dealt with the safety, security, et cetera, for international diplomats from foreign countries. Is that fair? Okay. So yesterday we heard evidence from the Assistant Deputy Minister, Security and Emergent Management at Global Affairs Canada, and she testified that they were concerned about the security and safety of foreign diplomats in Ottawa. And this document is a February 4th email, if we can scroll down, please, from Bill McCrimmon, Deputy Director of Diplomatic Security and Outreach Programs with GAC, so Global Affairs Canada. Are you familiar with Mr. McCrimmon?
No.
Right. And if you just want to take a moment, I'll read it to you. But in that email, he states on February 4th, the Office of Protocol has not been made aware officially of any significant concerns by the diplomatic community in the National Capital Region.
Could you just read a little slower, please?
Yeah. Linked to current ongoing demonstrations downtown Ottawa. The RCMP Protective Operation Assessment Unit advised that there is no particular concern at this time for the diplomatic community. Some foreign missions have requested that the RCMP conduct security assessments. However, no specific concerns have been identified. Several missions have informally raised issues and inconveniences with the Chief of Protocol that have been affecting their operations related to limited access to buildings, block streets, noise impeding their work, and the odor of diesel fumes. The Office of Protocol, in brackets, Diplomatic Security Liaison Unit, close brackets, remains in contact with the RCMP and will advise of any significant concerns affecting the diplomatic mission. And can you agree that as of February 4th, that was the assessment also of your office?
I'd have to see our assessment, but if he's saying that the RCMP said that.
Right, and I take it that though this is February 4th, this situation as described here remained the same throughout the whole protest, did it not?
I can't speak for sure. I don't have any of the documents.
Okay, and yesterday, the Assistant Deputy Minister, she couldn't give us any other information other than a blanket statement with no evidence or information. So is it fair to say that if there was actual evidence or information?
Excuse me. I don't think that that's a fair description of the evidence that was provided by the witnesses yesterday.
All right, I'll rephrase it. So would you say then that you would have no more further information with respect to specifics than the Assistant Deputy Minister did yesterday?
I don't know what the Assistant Deputy Minister said yesterday, but what I can say is I would have to look at the RCMP threat assessment documents or any of the requests to know what the threat environment was throughout the convoy, just to be fair.
Okay. Now, Commissioner Lucki, I'm going to ask some pointed questions on the next following set. Now, Commissioner Lucki, can you agree that under the RCMP Act, it doesn't provide sufficient independence from political, executive, and political interference from your office? Is that fair?
Well, I assume it does, but others don't.
Right. And you know that from your appointment as commissioner under Section 5 of the RCMP Act, that appointment is what's referred to at pleasure. You understand that?
Yes.
And you understand that that means that the governing council, on a recommendation from the political executive, the Prime Minister, Cabinet, can remove you at any time at will without reason, right? And this is different than what's referred to as an appointment of good behavior. You understand what that is?
Yes, not intimately, but.
And an appointment of good behavior, you at least understand, requires actual grounds of misconduct to remove you, kind of like a judge, right? You get that?
Yes.
Right. And for example, I take it you're aware of the former SNC Lavalin, Jody Wilson-Raybould scandal with respect to the Director of Public Prosecution Services of Canada. That Public Prosecution Services Director, you're aware that they're appointed at good behavior. They're not subject to being removed at will. You're aware of that?
No.
Okay. And you understand, I understand you have an understanding of the SNC Lavalin, Jody Wilson-Raybould scandal, though, do you not?
Yes.
Right. And the issue with that is that the political executive trying to use Ms. Raybould-Wilson essentially tried to skirt the act with respect to advising prosecution services on how to conduct themselves. Is that fair?
Yes, I guess.
Okay.
I'm not intimately familiar with.
Right. And the problem with that is that act, you know that any direction from the political executive via the Minister of Justice, the Attorney General, that seeks to compel the Director of Public Prosecution Services to do something, it has to be through the legislative process, and then whatever they direct them has to be published in a gazette within 6 months. Are you aware of that?
No.
All right. And you agree that your Office of Commissioner has no such safeguards, does it?
No.
And you know that the common law in policing is that you as commissioner and other chiefs of police throughout the country and the common law world really are to be 100% independent from the political executive.
Yes.
And you agree with me that the political executive...
I would say, though, we do get direction on the administration side of the policing, but not the operational side.
Right. And you can agree with me that the political executive should not be placing undue pressure on you or directing you what to do with respect to policing other than the administration part.
Yes.
As you mentioned. Right. And it's true, and I'm not trying to poke, but it's public knowledge that previously the political executive has asked you to do certain things in investigations, such as release information that could undermine an investigation. You remember that?
You'll have to be more specific of what you're referring to.
You agree that happened when you were asked by federal ministers to release the form of firearms the RCMP in Nova Scotia knew were used in the mass shooting while the investigation was ongoing? Remember?
But what are you referring to specifically?
I'm referring to the issue with respect to releasing the forms of firearms for the purpose of furthering the legislation.
There was no pressure to do that.
Right, but the minister asked you to do it.
No, the minister asked me if, in fact, the information about the firearms would be part of a media release.
Right, and when
He didn't ask me to put that in there.
Right, and when it wasn't, there's the transcript and the recording with respect to that, that you had said to some of your colleagues, why couldn't this have been done? The minister asked for a small ask, why wasn't it done?
That's not the context in which that was taken.
Okay. Now, I take it that, would you agree that the executive branch of the federal government, both yourself and you, Deputy Commissioner, they tried to tell you what action to take during the protest, didn't they?
Sorry, they asked us to what?
They tried to tell you what actions to take in policing during the protest, did they not?
Absolutely not.
Did they not ask you, they wanted you to take it over?
No.
Right, so the clerk of the Privy Council and you, Assistant Commissioner, did not have a phone call on February 3rd, 2022, recorded in your notes, where they said that we need to take this over.
Yeah, but saying it and doing it is two different things.
Right. Can I take you, can we please bring up document pb.nsc.can.00008001. Okay. Now, this is a copy of your notes, sir. There's two copies of your notes. The one that my friends had been referring to in your summary statement, just so you're aware, that's document 8073. this is the other set, or that was document 8074. There's another set, and there's some highlighting that you've made in these notes, and I'm going to take you to it. Beginning first, we'll go right to the February 3rd note. Which is on, my apologies. Fourth. I believe it's 19. If we can go to page 19, please. All right, so we'll begin at the top that says February 3rd. That's the note for the day. If we can scroll down. Just a second here. Just keep going. Oh. If I could just have a moment.
Sure.
And so just for your understanding, this was the record we found that was deposited over the weekend. That's why I'm having a little trouble navigating it. Okay, great. There's actually a second one. It's on page 19, I believe. That's the Min's call. Well, we'll start with this one. And this is the minister's call at, I'm going to scroll up. Right, so 12:30. And that's the minister's call. And I take it that the Minister of Public Safety and the Minister of Emergency Preparedness is on that call with you?
I would have to check the minutes, but I just have minister's call. Normally it would be Minister Menachino, sometimes Algabra, and I see Blair a little further down. That's correct.
Right. So, and there it states, question, Mendocino's observations and non-policing response, seeing way more, or seeing way, can you tell me what that says?
Saying way more traffic, can't make out the last word. Saying way more traffic.
And does not seem to be a plan, must start with enforcement. So it tells you that,
Yeah.
right? And then Bill Blair, of course, that's the Minister of Emergency Preparedness. He's the former Chief of Police of Toronto, is that correct?
That's correct.
And he says the PM is increasingly concerned about how the city will deal with this. Is that right?
According to my notes, correct?
Right. And so you agree that, you know, as a police officer, you're trained to take notes, right?
Yeah.
And you take notes of conversations and investigations contemporaneously to the investigation?
Correct.
And you write down relevant material matters that you want to remember later in time, right?
Key points that I want to remember or brief up.
Right. So it's fair to say that these things that you wrote down, this is what was said to you by those two ministers, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And if we can scroll down to the next page, please. And this was already put in the other set of notes, but there I see that Minister Mendocino, he says to you that his colleagues feel unsafe going to the Hill. They feel, is that harassed, or
Yeah.
what does that say?
Feel harassed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Shorthand written.
yeah. And then what is it, the second?
Concern of Ottawa, Central Citizens Essential Care,
Counter protests.
counter protests.
Right, okay. So if we can keep scrolling down, actually, I think I understand why I had it wrong. The date I had with respect to when you had the meeting with the clerk of the Privy Council is actually the 9th. So I'm going to take you down to February 9th. Let me just find that there. And that's 41, page 41. Or, yeah, so at the top there, you see that's the date, the 9th, and it says call with clerk, 800. And that's the clerk of the Privy Council, is that correct?
I would assume so.
Right. And you were there flushing out financials, financial compensation, employees' business, and PS, are you referring there as Peter Slawley or public safety?
Let me just read it here. I'm not quite sure if that was public safety or Peter Slowly.
Well, it
I'm
says,
guessing if it was the clerk, it's because it's public safety.
right, so feels organized. What's that word right after the period? In organized?
Ambassador Bridge.
Ambassador Bridge. Want to just read it out for me?
Feel organized, Ambassador Bridge, stretched OPP, incremental success, OPS, working at incremental, very small things. Chief, 48, 76 hours to gather the troops.
Right, so at the time, at least on February 9th, I take it that you thought the OPS was doing an okay job. Is that fair?
Remind me of that date?
That's February 9th.
Not necessarily saying that they were doing a good job.
Right, but they were making incremental,
Well, that's what we've been shared,
right.
but still, it was difficult to understand what those incremental gains were, or very small things that were done.
And the clerk responded to you that we need to take this over. Do they know what this means?
No, and I'm not quite sure. There's probably other people on the line. I just said the clerk said we need to take this over, and not necessarily speaking to me. Rarely do I brief the clerk alone. We need to take this over. Do they know what this means? And again, I think there's a lack of understanding of how it works when you're looking at jurisdiction when a comment like that is made, just like when minutes.
Right. But the clerk of the Privy Council is the highest ranking civil servant in the entire federal apparatus, right? They're the equivalent in provinces as what's called the DM, the deputy minister. She answers to the prime minister and the prime minister alone, right?
My understanding.
And so on February 9th, she's telling you that the federal government and yourselves, the RCMP, have to take over.
Correct.
Okay. And then we'll scroll back up to the top, if I can. I'm just going to go through this in order. If we could go to page 11. So if you can scroll down there. And this is another briefing to the ministers. Is that right?
I see minister's brief, 1,300 hours, 3 points, yeah.
Is that not what you're informing them, a police operational plan?
They are being briefed on discussions that we've been having with OPS, or that OPS would share with us. So one of the concerns the commissioner said earlier, how is this going to end, when it's going to end, was asked frequently. For anything we had on the planning side, we'd brief up to the ministers to inform them that there is something that we don't always have access to, but there's discussions, that there's plans ongoing.
Right. And is it not fair to say that throughout this protest, that the political executive and the executive branch of the federal government were asking you for operational plans and even asking you to give the operational plans of the OPS to them?
So I will defer to the commissioner on this one, but my dealings with the deputy ministers and the ministers, never once did they ask for the operational plan.
Okay.
We kept them updated on the work that's being done. Commissioner, not quite sure if there's anything to add.
We were never asked to give any operational plans. We did brief generally that there was a plan, but we never went into I didn't get briefed on the plan until February 10th, I think it was, or February 11th, but we didn't ever give them, they never asked for the plan.
And can I take you down now to page 25? And if we can just go to the top of page 25, the first thing. What meeting is this? Pre-meet SBE?
What date is that?
This is from the 5th.
Okay, so it's pre-meet SSE, assistance with Alberta, probably key things that we had to look at for the pre-meet with SSE.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was internally or with deputy ministers. I'm not sure.
Right, and if we can just scroll down to where it starts with OPP, and it states here that OPP offered its legal expert worked Ipperwash hearing that the OPS is priority for political reasons. So is that the offer from OPP? They offered the RCMP legal counsel because of political interference concerns they had?
No, not at all. What that was is trying to muster the people together that had the expertise, that had the knowledge, that have worked on several key incidents. And in this case is the result of what came out of the Ipperwash inquiry to help them.
Right, and that's to help the RCMP.
No, it was to help the OPS, Ottawa Police Service.
Okay, so,
We were an assistance to Ottawa Police Service.
right, and so the OPP had relayed to you that they had concerns with political interference.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why I put the pivoting for political reasons. I'm not quite sure why I put it there.
Well, the Ipperwash proceeding was about that partly, and it's like one of the main things, and as I understand it, one of the main reasons that the political executive in Ontario wouldn't get involved in this matter, because it was against the principles set down in Ipperwash and police independence. So the OPP is offering legal experts to deal with police independence. And so why would they do that if they didn't have a concern with political interference, sir?
So I'm not fully aware of the Ipperwash. I didn't read the report. And what I can say is that what was offered there from the OPP was just assistance with their person who worked on the Ipperwash inquiry for lessons learned. That's all I can say. I can't go in because of political reasons. All I know is they were offering up resources to assist.
Okay.
You're over your time already, so.
Sir, this is 113 pages of notes. I would like a little bit of extra time. These notes were not dealt with in the statement of the witness because they are a different set than the ones that the commission had dealt with, which is 8074. These were not uploaded or provided to the parties until Remembrance Day, and we found them last night.
Well,
And I understand the commission wasn't able, in my view, to deal with these issues only because they were using another set of notes. And these notes are a contemporaneous outline and timeline of this witness's evidence of what happened. They are extraordinarily relevant material, and I would ask leave to be able to finish the examination.
they are the same notes, I believe, as the
They're
other
not, sir.
set of notes. There's just a bit of highlighting, but it's the same text as I understand it. But in any event, there are 16 other people who want to question this panel, and it's a matter of organizing your exam. I must say I didn't interrupt when you were examining about the proceedings in Nova Scotia, but
Right.
that was not exactly relevant for this hearing.
Right. If I could take, if I could ask this, I'll finish up. If we could go to page 38 of this document. And so this is another meeting, if we can scroll down. And it says 1235 M3. I take it that's Marco Medicino, that's the minister, you call him M3?
Yep.
Okay. And there, he's discussing about changing the posture when it comes to provincial engagement and what OPP will contribute. And then Blair goes on that it doesn't show how the chief will essentially base it on not having a plan. In his opinion, the chief of the OPS is not going to get the resources that he requires from the province. Is that fair?
Can you scroll up before that, before Minister Blair, Minister Menachino? Okay. And the question, sorry?
So is he saying there to you that the plan from OPS, it is such that the chief will not receive the resources he needs from other Ontario police services? That's what he tells you?
Correct.
All right. And if we can scroll down to the next page, please. Who is the individual right there with CMIS? It says concentrated effort to make this country look bad, start to midterms. Who is that? Who is CMIS for?
The Minister O'Regan.
Minister O'Regan. Okay. So he tells you that, I take it that the convoy and the protesters are a concentrated effort to make the country look bad?
That's what I wrote down on comments that were made, yeah.
Okay. And I'm almost finished, sir. If we could please go down to page 45, please. And scroll down. And there you highlight that the president will be calling the PM pressure to seek additional resources. Is that, who relayed that to you?
That was in the call, the pressure to release additional resources. That's something that I put down in a sense that it was in relation to the Windsor Bridge where there's concerns with the duration of the blockade. And I just put down seek additional resources ready to give to give the assistance required for it. So.
Right. And then just to page 49, please. If we can scroll down. So this is the meeting from the 10th of February with the minister's briefing. Again, that's the Minister of Public Safety and the Minister of Emergency Preparedness. And I take it that the Minister of Public Safety states to you that the intel they're getting is not sufficiently timely, is not sufficient or timely, and to stop the protests and setting this up, view what is the plan and different for convoy. Can you read that last sentence there?
Different phases coming to the realization that we're not responding fast enough. And what Minister Menachino was alluding to is we had these slow rolls, more specifically in the province of Ontario, that without having the right information, they were able to set up before we even knew that they were going to do so.
And then Minister Blair canvasses you, question if exercise some jurisdictional change. Is that speaking to the policing? You're taking on a role, is that fair?
I'm not, it doesn't ring a bell.
Okay. And if we can scroll down then just to the next page. And this is the Intel overview. Is this your words here or is it somebody else's?
Can you just go up for a sec? That would be from someone else.
Okay. And is it from, it says OPP on the side. Would it be fair to say that's Commissioner Morris?
That would have been a meeting, I wrote down OPP and OACP, a meeting that I believe is a meeting with that was chaired by the Commissioner of the OPP with representatives of the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police Association.
All right. And was there anyone from the federal government at that meeting?
Other than the RCMP was present, I'm not aware of anyone else.
Okay. And the intelligence that Commissioner Morris provided you there is similar to what he's testified about before this commission, was that these were normal people and they were essentially resentment to the Trudeau government for COVID measures and multiple groups, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so can I take you down to, this is February 11th.
Okay, you're going to have to wrap up.
Okay.
I've been...
So I will go then right to if we can go to page the one with, I believe it's the 13th. You actually had notes of the IRG meetings. 65. We go to 65, please. Well, 64 first. And there, Minister Blair discusses throwing Ottawa under the bus. That was your note?
That was my note, correct?
All right. And I take it when he's saying Ottawa, he's talking about the Ottawa Police Service. Is that fair? It's not the city of Ottawa?
Correct.
Right. So his plan on that date is he's intending to throw Ottawa under the bus, being the OPS, for any failures that have been dealt with respect to policing. Is that fair?
He could have made a comment during the meeting saying that he was not satisfied with the work that's being done by Ottawa Police Service.
Okay. And then can I just take you to,
Most of these notes are not word for word what was said. Sometimes
Right.
just a quick recap of.
and if I can take you up to page 62, please. And there you wrote, comment PM. I take it that that's the Prime Minister? And it says, regarding RCMP, they haven't done anything.
Yeah, that was in reference to the overall blockades that were taken across, that was going on across the country. There was some, they were not displeased, but did not understand the flow, speed and flow, and what it takes when you're dealing with a demo.
Okay.
And that came across that they were not happy with how we were handling the different demos.
Right, and this will be the last note. So page 67, please. And this is from the 14th at 9 o'clock. This is the National Security Intelligence Advisor that you're meeting with, I take it?
That's correct.
Right, and that's Jody Thomas?
At the time, yes, it was Jody Thomas.
Right, and I take it there that for whatever reason you're recording what she's saying, and there on one of the points, measures put out draconian. They will turn to us. Everyone is using their authority that's been given. RCMP taking advantage of authority. What was that about?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what I meant by that, tell you the truth. Measures putting out.
Right, and and just for you, Commissioner Lucki, in ending this, it is the fact that in the...
Excuse me, you're not giving the witness a chance to read the notes. He said he's not sure what it says, and he's trying to read it, and you're moving on to something else.
Right, so...
If you're going to ask the witness questions, then let him have a chance to read it, please.
I can wait, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I don't have any more comments on that. I'm reading it, and
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure what it was meant.
That's how I understood the evidence as well. So Commissioner Lucki, you were present for both the February 13th IRG as well as the February 14th cabinet meeting?
Yes, I think the cabinet meeting was on the 13th.
And, well, and so the IRG meeting, they, according to the text messages and the messages that we've reviewed, they never even asked you to speak.
Definitely not at the cabinet meeting, and what I did do, I don't think I spoke at either. I thought I did because I had speaking notes, but I did brief the minister before that meeting.
Right, and the minister never asked you what your opinion was with respect to whether or not there was a Section 2 CSIS Act security threat. Is that correct?
In respect to what?
Whether or not there was a threat under Section 2 as defined in the CSIS Act, if there was a threat to the security of Canada.
No, he would have to ask CSIS.
Right, and CSIS, you're aware, told him that there wasn't.
That's what I've been told.
So
You're
if,
going to have to.
thank you, those are my questions.
Okay, thanks. Next is the Ontario Provincial Police.
Good afternoon, Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner. My name is Chris Diana. I'm counsel for the OPP. We've heard some evidence from Commissioner Kariq that, Commissioner, he worked very closely with you throughout the convoy time period. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we've seen some of the text exchanges between you and him. So is it fair to say that you either spoke with him or texted with him pretty much every day during the course of this event?
Very often, yes.
And it's fair to say that you worked together to help support former Chief Slowly in trying to manage the Ottawa event, correct?
Yes.
And in particular, Commissioner Carrique had probably more kind of one-on-one dealings with Chief Slowly than you did. Is that fair?
Yes,
And ultimately, your mutual cooperation with Commissioner Carrique helped lead to the development of the integrated planning team. Is that fair?
yes,
Where both provided subject matter experts to make sure that there was a way to resolve the Ottawa occupation. Is that fair?
yeah, that was our goal.
Now, I believe it's in the institutional report that at no point did you ever ask for the invocation of the Emergencies Act, correct?
Correct,
But you were asked, though, what tools would be useful, correct?
yes.
So we've already seen that document, but I want to bring it up again. So if we can look at pb.nsc.can 403256, please. All right, now we've seen this already today. If we can scroll to the bottom and see what the genesis of this was. It's an email from Mike Jones, who I understand is the Chief of Staff for Minister Mendicino. Is that correct?
Yes,
And this is sent to you February 13th at 7:25 p.m. And there's a section that's blacked out there. I'm not entirely sure why. The reason for the redaction is not entirely made clear, but my understanding is that you were asked to speak about two things. You were asked to give some information on what tools would be useful, and you were also asked questions about critical infrastructure. Is that correct?
yes, I believe so.
And as you can see, obviously there was timing was important here because as it says, quick follow-ups before cabinet. Now, what was your understanding of when that cabinet meeting would take place?
Well, 7:25 PM, I thought, I'm sure, I think the cabinet meeting was that night, so.
Sorry, can't hear you.
I think that cabinet meeting was that night, so I'm not sure. I thought it would have already been in progress, or obviously it wasn't. I'm not sure what time the cabinet meeting was that day.
Okay, but regardless, your understanding was that this was a very time-sensitive request. Is that fair?
Everything was time sensitive, yes.
Sure, so if we can scroll to the top, we'll see that you responded at, I guess, 12:47 a.m., so approximately 5 hours later. Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm not sure how those times
This is one
work.
of those cases where you need to subtract 5.
Subtract 5, yeah.
Oh, thank you. So
I
is that
was
also
going to say
figured-
I'm never up past 10 o'clock, so
I had
surprised I
figured,
would have responded.
I had figured that issue out for the text messages, but okay, so that applies to this as well then. If we scroll to the bottom. I just want to make sure I'm clear on the time. So
No.
that says 7:25 p.m. Is that actually 7:25 p.m. or is it my?
Yeah,
Yes, it's only where it has the plus 0000 that
Oh,
you
I
have
see.
to
So in the
subtract
same
the 5.
email exchange, we've got two different ways to figure out
It's
the
usually
time.
just the top email you have to do it on.
All right, okay, well, thank you. That's very complicated. All right, so then let's go to the top. So the email was sent from Mike Jones, 7:25, and your response is at 7:47 then. Would that be,
That's
so you
like-
responded almost right away?
right away, yeah.
Okay. So I take it that in that time period, you clearly wouldn't have had an opportunity to consult with other law enforcement agencies about what tools might be useful. Is that correct?
No, we had already consulted within our organization to the commanding officers. I'm not sure if we were able to consult outside of the RCMP because of cabinet confidence.
Okay, well, I'm going to get to that in a
Yeah.
minute, but let's backtrack a little bit because I want to ask about the initial request from Mike Jones. You were being asked for advice on what tools would be useful. Was it your sense when you received that email, and either from that email or from conversations you had around the same time, that they were waiting on your advice on these issues? Or was it your sense that they'd already made up their mind that they were going to invoke it?
I'm not sure what they were thinking, but just given the time, it was very quick turnaround. I would not have put that together off the top of my head. I would have got that information. That information was already established. If you look, it's quite detailed. I wouldn't have just been typing that off the top of my head. I would have got it from somebody, and the fact that it was so quickly afterwards, I think that information was already in the queue somewhere else.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that because I haven't, there are a lot of documents, thousands of documents, and maybe I've missed it, but do you recall how that information came to you?
This would have come through my people. Probably I would have tasked that through to Deputy Commissioner Mike Duhem. They would have gone to especially the commanding officers in BC, Alberta, and Manitoba, where 3 of the big protests in our jurisdiction were, because they were dealing with the protests, and we wanted to know what authorities might be useful if they did invoke the act.
All right, now we've heard from Commissioner Carrique, and he was very clear in his evidence that at no point did anyone from the RCMP reach out to him to ask him for his advice on what tools would be useful, and you have no reason to dispute that?
No, I was actually kind of surprised because in my mind I thought that we had, but obviously if he says that, then we probably didn't.
Right, and so and he said it very clearly, I can bring up the transcript
Yeah.
if you wish, but
No,
and certainly there's no documentary evidence to suggest that you ever consulted with him. You would agree, I take it, that because the OPP was involved kind of as a lead in Windsor, they were very involved in leading the integrated planning team in Ottawa, there were issues all throughout Ontario, that the OPP had an important interest in what tools would be made available to it, correct?
no, absolutely.
And that in retrospect, would you agree that it would have been a good idea to have consulted with Commissioner Carrique so he could have given you his opinion on what may have been helpful?
And like I said, I didn't, if I did not, obviously, according to Commissioner Carrique, consult with him, but in my mind, I thought there was consultation done with OPP and OPS, not at my level, because I wasn't doing the consultation in my own organization, that some other people were doing that. But I assumed, wrongly, obviously, that when I asked for consultation with the various agencies, that they were included in that, unless we weren't allowed to do that.
Yeah, and the reason I find it odd is because, you would communicate with them by text, by phone call. You could have simply just picked up the phone and said, oh, Tom, I just got this email, keep it on the down low, but because there are confidences involved here, but are there any tools that the OPP would find useful here?
No, I assumed this list was the consultation of police. That's honestly, I thought this list, where it came through my chain of command, but I assumed that was part and parcel of consultation.
Right. So somewhere there was a breakdown in the communication. OPP should have been consulted, but they weren't.
Unless there was reasons why they couldn't, I'm not sure.
Okay, and I know that whether it was you or the deputy,
I think the
it mentioned there were 2 possible factors. One was timing, but of course, that could have been done very quickly with your relationship with the commissioner,
Yep.
correct?
Yes.
And the other issue was matter of confidence, but we all know in policing that confidential information between police services is shared. And I take it that you would have trusted Commissioner Carrique enough to have that conversation with him, correct?
It depends. Like cabinet confidence is quite, like policing information is one thing, but because it's our information, so I can say that I can share that, but when it's not my information, I'm not at liberty to share.
Right, but you could have done it another way. You could have said, Commissioner, there's some consideration about the Emergencies Act.
Yeah, there's
And so what
probably
are your, and so I don't, because you would mention the Emergencies Act several days before. So you could have said that as a hypothetical. If Cabinet was to invoke the EA, are there any tools that would be useful? You could have done that, right?
Yeah, I absolutely could have. Except I might be breaching cabinet confidence, so I don't know if I would have.
Okay, but you referenced Emergencies Act possibility, I forget the day, maybe it was February 5th. And that's
Yeah, and back then I called it the Emergency Measures Act. I didn't even know what it was.
Right. Now, I might circle back to this. I want to make sure I don't run out of time, to make sure I get a couple of my points in here. I'd like to go to towing very
Yes.
briefly. And I've heard your evidence that you weren't directly involved in that aspect. But I think, there's been some back and forth and some question, but there's a document that I think needs to go into the record that I need to put to you that I think will help clarify the issue. Do you know the name Sergeant Kirk Richardson from the OPP?
No.
All right, he was one, we've heard from Carson Party that he was one of the subject matter experts on the integrated planning team who was responsible for towing. If you can, clerk, Mr. Clerk, put up the document pb.nsc.405777. All right, so you can see that there's an email exchange here between some folks in the RCMP. Kelly Bradshaw, Deputy Commissioner, do you know who Kelly Bradshaw is?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah, Kelly Bradshaw was an RCMP member responsible for financial crime unit.
And I believe there's already been reference to Mark Flynn. If you can scroll down, please, so we can get the context of this email exchange further down. All right, so stop there. You'll see Kelly Bradshaw. This is to an email to Kirk Richardson from the OPP. Hi, Kirk. I am being asked the following question. Did OPP use Emergencies Act on tow companies yesterday in Ottawa? So if you can scroll up for the response, and this is from the subject matter expert that was dealing with this, and you can see his response on February 20th. He writes, hello, the tow contractors used for the operations to clear the protest areas were approached to see if they would provide service. The heavy tow providers, 2 companies, both are contractors with the MTO. The light duty tows were arranged by Ottawa Police. I am not sure what the arrangements were related to costs. I do not believe the EO was used to make them tow, but it was referenced in relation to protection and compensation if damage occurred related to the protest. Now, I take it you wouldn't have any information to contradict that from the subject matter expert?
this is the first I've seen this information.
And you have no reason to doubt the accuracy of that?
I can't refute it or accept it. I have no idea. I've never seen this information.
Okay, that's fine. Can we, I want to take you to your witness summary, please. And the reference for that is, I have it written somewhere. If we can go to the RCMP witness summary, which is WTS 69. And go to page 24. And again, this is just another loose end that I want to tie up because it's important to have all the facts before the tribunal. You'll note that there's a reference to the theft of about approximately 3,400 firearms from Peterborough area. Do you remember that incident?
Yes,
Now, your witness summary doesn't make a reference to the fact that those firearms were recovered about 2 days later. You will recall that, correct?
yes,
And so I think it's just important for the record that we hear acknowledgement that, well, that was a matter of significant concern at the time. It was resolved within 2 days, correct?
yes,
And that in fact, you told the, and I'm not going to bring the minutes up unless you want to see them, but because it was an important issue, you made sure that you told the incident response group the next day that the guns had been recovered. Do you remember
yes.
that?
I believe so, yes.
Because you did not want to leave the mistaken impression that there were 3,000 odd guns out there.
Out there,
And so that was important to make sure you cleared that up. Correct?
yes.
It wasn't in your witness summary, the conclusion. I wanted to make sure that was on the record. Now, if I can go to, going back to the consultation piece, if I think maybe I have a few more minutes yet.
1 minute is the way I have the count, but
Sorry, David. If we can go to page 22. Second paragraph, next paragraph down. Okay, so it says Commissioner Lucki sought input and other police agencies. Here you talk about seeking input from different divisions. You've spoken with that already. And one of the questions, and a question that I really wanted to ask, is that when you consider the extraordinary nature of the Emergencies Act, do you agree that it would be useful to keep a written consultation record so that when we go back and look at how we use the emergency powers, we're able to identify who we spoke to, what they said about what tools would be useful? Do you agree that that should be kind of clearly set out in writing so we can keep a record?
There was 1,000 things going on that we could have kept record of. Absolutely. You can never, I guess, you can never over-record, but it wasn't kept.
No, but I mean, I think that it's, and I asked the question because it's not entirely clear who was consulted, when they were consulted, and what they were said. And again, for future reference, it would be helpful, wouldn't it, to have that? Because we have a consultation report filed by Government of Canada that talks about consultation with the political leaders. But what I'm putting to you is that it would also be helpful to have that kind of record on law enforcement consultation.
Yes, I would agree it would be helpful.
All right, well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
It says it. See that?
Okay, next, I'd like to call on the Ottawa Police Service, please.
Good morning or good afternoon, Commissioner Lucki and Deputy Commissioner Duhaime. My name is David Michikowski, and I'm a lawyer for the Ottawa Police Service. Commissioner, if I can start with you. You are on record as saying that you do not view the invocation of the Emergencies Act as a failure of policing. Is that fair?
Did I say that again?
That you're on record as saying, I do not view the invocation of the Emergencies Act as a failure of policing.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Right, you agree with that. And that's because, as I understand it, this was a very unique and fluid situation, and what happened in Ottawa was very different from what was seen across the country, correct?
Yeah, it was the first of its kind.
And I also understand, Commissioner, that you are a trained POU commander.
Yeah, dated, but yes.
And although you have a very lengthy history in law enforcement, I think this was the first time you saw a protest such as this one as well. Is that right?
Yes.
In one of your key message updates, and I won't turn it up, but I don't think it's contentious, but it was your February 3rd key message update. You talked about the convoys returning for the weekend, which we know was a phenomena that occurred, and there was a discussion of farm equipment. And you said at the time, look, there's no bar on farm equipment from coming into the city, and that there have been convoys in the past with farm equipment downtown in Ottawa in the past, correct?
Yes.
Deputy Duhaime, I understand that the NRCC, or the NCRCC, I apologize, was stood up for this event, correct?
Yeah, it was stood up around January 28th, I believe.
And the RCMP was part of that NCRCC?
Correct, the RCMP and many other partners.
And it is used as a hub for intelligence that goes on for the event?
Not just intelligence. It's a coordination. It's a command center that ensures coordination with different partners who are at the table. As I mentioned earlier, you could have Ottawa City Transport that's there, paramedics, fire department, Service de police délégué Snow, La Sûreté du Québec, and other partners that are there, so that there's a coordinated approach every time there's an action taken on the scene.
But included within that, I believe, was a hub for intelligence.
That's correct.
Okay. Commissioner Lucki, my understanding is that the RCMP followed the convoys across the country and, in fact, provided on-the-ground information to the OPP when the convoy crossed from Manitoba into Ontario.
Yes.
And that information then was funneled through a JIG, a Joint Intelligence Group.
Yeah, or a SIG. I don't remember which one.
And Deputy Duhaime, you indicated, I believe, in your witness statement that the OPS had the same intelligence as the RCMP, correct?
Through our combined intelligence group. That's my understanding.
And I believe you also indicated, Deputy, in your witness statement that when it became clear that the convoy was coming to Ottawa, police agencies began to share intelligence, including that through Project Hendon, correct?
Yes, and I think the sharing started actually before that, but I believe it started before that.
Commissioner, you were, and both of you, I guess, were part of a panel that was interviewed by the commission, and I think there were several of your colleagues that joined you, Deputy Commissioner McDonald, Deputy Commissioner Zablocki, Deputy Commissioner Brennan, and Liam Price, the Director General, correct?
Yes.
And there was a discussion with your colleagues, I see in that summary, about the social media messaging of the convoy and the statement to the effect that there was some social media messaging saying that they wouldn't leave till the mandates were lifted. And Deputy Commissioner Brennan stated that the RCMP had concerns about the reliability of that messaging because many protest groups use social media messaging as a diversion. And you didn't disagree with that, correct?
Yeah, it's his opinion on that. I had no opinion on that.
And you didn't disagree when he said that, did you?
Yeah, I was agnostic.
In fact, you said in response that there were different groups here as part of the convoy, and they were not all on the same page, correct?
Yes.
I believe Commissioner Lucki and Deputy Commissioner Duhaime, you both expected, you indicated in the witness summary, that some protesters might stay in Ottawa until the Monday, January 31st, which is when Parliament was returning to session, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
And initially, and I can take you to the document if it's necessary, but there was a PCO call on January. Oh, actually, it might be helpful if we turn up the document. Mr. Clerk, it is ssm.can.nsc 402591. And if we could please go to the first page. And if you'll see the third bullet under 4 lanes of work, peaceful event. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And if you, sorry, actually, if you go down to the third large bullet where it says non-threat, just underneath that, yes, Sergeant at Arms, PPS, OPS, RCMP, all seeing peaceful event, no indications otherwise, but watching the chatter, correct? And that reflects what you knew at the time?
I don't know what date this is referring to.
Sure, if we can go up to the top, I believe it was January 27th.
Yeah, the convoy hadn't even arrived yet.
Right.
Yeah, oh, okay, within our events, yeah, as it was crossing, yes.
Apologies, David Cherokee for the Government of Canada. Again, it's the -5 hours thing, so I think we're at the 26th in the evening.
Okay, thank you.
So-
Yes, so it's, again, if we can then just scroll down again. And if we can go to the second page, so this would be the evening of the 26th. So if we go to page 2, the first bullet, you'll see just at the top, blocking of intersections. Protesters say they're not going to do that, but it's a lot of cars, which is what you understood at the time as well. They were not planning to block intersections.
Where is this?
I'm sorry?
This is in Ottawa?
Yes.
Because they're not even in Ottawa yet.
I'm sorry?
Like, from what I understand is that January 28th, the convoys.
That's correct, but based on what you knew on the 26th in the evening, you understood that they were not planning on blocking intersections.
In Ottawa?
Correct.
Okay, that I don't know, but if it's.
Can I just add something here, sir? This is the first time I see this
Yeah,
document.
I've never seen this
I don't know who participated on the calls. I understand reading through the lines at the RCMP, but this is the very first time I see this document.
Okay. Are you disagreeing with it, or you simply don't know?
I wasn't there, and I don't want to question what's in there, but I wasn't there. Some of the things that I see, I can validate it through other intel that I had from another picture, but I don't even know who the representatives from the RCMP was on this call.
Okay, you had no information to suggest at that point in time that the protesters were planning to block intersections. Is that fair?
Not at that time.
Right. Thank you very much. And I believe, again, I can turn up the document, Commissioner, but I understand that as of just a couple days before the demonstration, there was some discussion at the RCMP about it was unknown how long they were staying, but there was some social media saying that they might stay until January 31st, which would be the Monday when Parliament was supposed to resume session, correct?
Again, I wasn't intimate, like, I wasn't into the details of the intelligence, and maybe Deputy Commissioner Duhem would be better suited to answer that.
I can show you the document if you want, Deputy, unless you're
No, I do recall seeing a document saying that they were planning to stay until the 31st.
Okay.
And there's another document that I'm not quite sure if it's before they arrived or after they arrived, that they didn't leave, they didn't want to leave unless they met with the Prime Minister. So I'm not quite sure if it was before they arrived or after they arrived.
Okay, so just for the records, it's pb.nsc.can 408069, which I believe was the 25th, which is indicated that some social media were saying that they would stay until January 31st. And if I could ask you, Mr. Clerk, to please call up pbnsc.can 401225. And if you will see, if you go to the bottom of this email, you'll have to go to the third page and then just so you can see what it is. Yeah, so you'll see it's something that was sent to you. Hi, Brenda. He just shot me these questions. And then if we go above it, we'll see you ask for some bullet points. And you'll see anything you can give me would be great, and then you get some information in response. So this is January 28th.
Okay.
And so you'll see question 3A at the bottom was latest on what-if scenarios. What if truckers leave vehicles parked on Wellington beyond Saturday? And a series of other questions you're asked about what if it turns violent, etc. And so if you go up to the first page, we see the answers to those questions. So you'll see, sorry, if you could just go to 3A at the bottom. OPS, I'm just on the third line. OPS has reached out to the hotel industry in the NCR who have confirmed that accommodations are fully booked through the weekend, but appear back to normal as of 22/01/31, so as of the Monday, correct?
Yeah.
And so OPS, it sounds like, was saying that they've checked the hotels. Contrary to some other evidence we've heard, they're reporting that, in fact, the hotels are back to normal on Monday, correct?
Yeah, that's the information we received.
And then if we look at the C, if we go to the next page, in the event that the protests turn violent, then there's a POU team available. The OPS has one. OPP has two POU teams. I believe Toronto was there, and some of the other municipal police services were there that weekend as well with a POU team in case, correct?
Yes.
And fortunately, those were not needed. And then if you go down to just below the redaction, we see that OPS and OPP PLT are continuing to work closely with the organizers of the event. And it says collaboration between all security partners in the NCR remains strong. And that would include the RCMP as one of the security partners, correct?
Yes.
Deputy Jahame, I know that on January 30th, if we could please turn to pbnsc.can 6033. you'll see on the January 30th Intel update, this is an RCMP update. OPP PLT, you're now reporting, have it reported chatter that the end date of the event could be February 2nd, correct? So that would be the Wednesday.
That's correct.
You would agree with me, there were obviously very many trucks on the streets, and some of them we know traveled great distances to get to Ottawa, correct?
That's my understanding of the group that were in the downtown core.
And one of the things we've heard from various police witnesses and law enforcement officials in this inquiry is a concern about taking actions which can inflame a crowd and cause danger, and the need sometimes for police to show some restraint at the time. And that, as I understand it, is a standard practice in policing.
I would say yes, every situation is different, but there comes a point that you have to assess and reassess your positioning and plan, I should say.
Sure. And so if I can ask you, I just want to get your reaction to this, if we can call up pb.nsc.can 401154. And it's page 7. Commissioner, I wonder if I might have an extra 5 minutes.
I'll give you a few minutes, but.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
And so if we can please go to page 7, the second to last bullet, is I want to get your reaction. Open sources are, this is, it did not occur, but open source reports are suggesting police are setting up roadblocks outside Ottawa, and such reports seem to fuel some truckers' agitation. And so you see that can cause, you can see how something like that can fuel truckers' aggression if they believe that, correct?
Yeah, can I know what the document is, the entitlement of the title and the date, or?
I'm just asking to just get your reaction to the statement.
Yeah, it could. A police action sometimes could generate a reaction.
Sure. And I also saw there was an email, and it's ONT 5099 from the provincial security advisor. And one of the things he noted at that time under his assessment, he referred to the possibility of police stopping trucks from entering the city, and noted that that could result in increased support or participation for the convoy. Does that make sense to you as well, Deputy?
It could, but it's also speculative.
Okay. You would agree with me that it could be a risk and it could inflame the crowd, correct?
It could, like it could not inflame the crowd. So it's one or the other.
The RCMP, you told us, was part of Intersect and was also part of the NCRCC, and in that context would have access to the OPS traffic plan, correct?
Yeah, that's where the coordination takes place.
And you're aware that the plans, that the traffic plan and the instructions that were sent out to the convoy participants clearly showed that there would be some convoy staging areas on Wellington, correct?
I did not see the plan as it was rolling in.
Okay. You're not disagreeing, though, that that information was available to the RCMP just as it was to the convoy organizers, and it showed that there would be some staging of vehicles on Wellington, correct?
What I will say is that when I was initially briefed on the file, I wasn't aware of any stoppage in the downtown core, more of a slow roll. And if that's changed over the course of the negotiations with the organizers, I wasn't made aware of it. But I will agree that any intel on the situation downtown would be shared at under the NCRCC and the Combined Intelligence Group.
Okay, if I can just ask you now to go to pbnsc.can 402476. And just while that's being called up, Deputy Duhame, in your joint witness statement on page 10, the second last paragraph, you talked about a call on January 31st where OPS stated that it wanted to launch aggressive enforcement between February 4th and 6th, and you felt that they didn't have the resources or the plans to support that. Do you recall that?
I recall the conversation, and it was reported to me, not that it wasn't briefed, it was briefed to me by, I forget who, but they were intending on launching an operation on the weekend of the 4th, and the concern that was brought to my attention is that there doesn't seem to be a plan, no one's aware of what's going on, and there's no maintenance portion after you've cleared the area. That's what was reported to me.
And the concern about enforcement, I'll show you this document, is on February 9th, if we go to the second page, actually, I guess if you start at the first page, so you'll see, just so that you can see where we are, just if we could go up, please. Yeah, so you'll see under background, February 8th, RCMP were advised that the OPP was attending Ottawa to assist. Then third bullet, February 9th, OPP and RCMP Superintendent Liu attended to OPS to assist in the development of a plan. And then at 1 o'clock, at 1300, there was a concept document that was provided. And then if you scroll down, and then go to the following page, you'll see just at the top. And so this is, again, the concern about taking enforcement action when it may not be appropriate. And it says, continuing in the meeting with less than 24-hour notice to partners and against the advice from the RCMP and OPP, the OPS chief announced that enforcement action was to take place on February 10th, beginning at 6, and then set out what it was. And then current situation, you see that it was then delayed. There was no kinetic plan. And so under the analysis, we see RCMP expressing concern about it not being a viable plan. Do you remember that?
I do recall being briefed on that, correct?
And I guess...
We're well over time now.
Thank you. I'll just finish off. I guess that concern about the about taking action before there's a full plan, and the absence of a plan was something that I continue to see Deputy Duhame and Commissioner Lucki in both of your notes, where you, throughout your key message, reference there isn't a viable plan here, up until the very end when the integrated cell becomes involved. Is that correct?
We were not ever shared a plan, so I couldn't say if there was a plan or not.
Okay, certainly you reported at your key message meetings, and I don't have time to turn it up, but the documents are in the record, that you reported that there was no plan that you were aware of and that was never shared with you.
Yes.
And you did as well, Deputy.
Yes, correct.
And it's in your notes as well.
It is.
Thank you very much. I do have more questions, but I am out of time. Thank you very much.
Well over time. I gave you more than 5, so you've done well. Next, I'm calling on former Chief Slowly's counsel, who generously gave up part of his time.
Yes. That, Commissioner Lucki,